Hello, my name is Parham, and welcome to my Sinatra application. In this application, basically, what the user can do, they can create a hospital, add additional hospitals, remove a hospital, and edit and delete a hospital. So, so just to show you how this application works, basically, we can go ahead and create an account here. We're gonna go ahead and type a username. Let's do like test app1 app1 at gmail.com app1. And once we sign up, we're going to go to the next page. It says welcome app1 to your hospitals. Here we'll add a new one, so let's just click here. So we haven't created any hospitals yet, so we can go ahead and add a new hospital. Let's do like Hogue. The name of the hospital and the country is United States. And once we do that, our hospital is going to be added here. So on this page, we can go ahead and edit the hospital. And let's just change this to Canada. And as you can see, the country was changed to Canada. And if I click all hospitals here, we're going to have that hospital that we just added. So here it is, the hospital and the country. And we can go ahead and open the hospital again. So this time we're going to go ahead and delete the hospital. So we're going to click delete. So as you can see, we don't have any hospitals here. We can go ahead and log out now. And once we log out, the session will be clear. And the other thing, if we create like a different username and password, each user is going to have its own hospital. So here we have our models. We have the class user. The user class has many hospitals. It has a secure passwords, and it also it validates username and the email so that the user cannot input any invalid data. And we also have the model hospital, which belongs to the user. Here we have our table. So the user has a username, email, and password digest. And to the best of my knowledge, what the password digest does is that it prevents like attacks from hackers. And we also have our hospital table. We have the hospital name, the hospital country, and we also have this macro, the user ID. And since it belongs to the user, we created this user ID so that it can match the user ID. So here we have our application controller. we set the app to view, we enable the sessions, and since we enabled the sessions, we're gonna set a session secret, and I named it password security. This is our welcome page here, and we also have our helpers. I defined a method called login, which which has the session and the user ID. Basically, the session, it tracks action of the user that is authenticated with us while they are logged in. And this session user ID, this is a key value pair, and it is crucial in determining whether a user exists. And we have another method here called current user. We're trying to see if a user has a active session, and if there is no current user here, we're going to be redirected to the login page. So the next one is going to be our user controller. We have the sign up page here, /sign up, which will be redirected. In this case, if the user is not logged in, we're going to be redirected to the users, create user, so that way the user can sign up. Otherwise, if the user is logged in, they will be taken straight to the hospitals. And just to explain what get and post is, get, it basically retrieves a resource or it displays values in the URL. And what the post does is that it submits data to the database and it does not involve users. So after the user signs up, if the params, the username, which is the name in the HTML file, is not empty and the password is not empty, or the password is not empty, or the email is not empty, they will be redirected to the sign up page. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and create a new user based on the params username, email, and password. We're going to go ahead and save that user. And finally, we're going to set the session user ID to be equal to the ID of the user. Here we have our login page. If the user is logged in, again, we're going to be redirected to the hospitals page. Otherwise, the user is going to be taken to the login page. After the user logs in, we're going to go in and find the user by its username. And if there is a user and the user authenticates the password, again, we're going to go in and set the session user ID to be equal to the ID of the user, which then will be redirected to the hospitals. Otherwise, the user will be taken to the sign up page. This is the page where we're going to display the hospitals. And lastly, once the user logs out, here we're saying that if the user is logged in, we're going to go ahead and destroy that session, and then the user is going to be taken back to the login page. And lastly, we have our hospital controller. And if you pay attention, we have the redirect if not logged in, which was previously defined in our helpers. Basically, if the user is not logged in, they're going to be automatically taken to the login page. So hospitals, we have hospital.all here, and then we have the ERB, which is the HTML file, hospitals/hospitals, and then here we're going to get hospitals new, and in this page the user can create a new hospital, and after the user creates a hospital, if the hospital name is empty or the hospital country is empty, they're going to be redirected to create a new hospital again. Otherwise, we're going to find its user based on the session. We're going to create a new hospital, which is the hospital name, the hospital country, and also the user ID. This was previously defined in our table, the user ID, which was the macro. And we're going to set it to the ID of the user, or user.id. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and save the hospital, and the user is going to be redirected to the hospital.id. This is the individual hospital that was saved. And then here we have hospitals/ID. We're going to go ahead and find the hospital by the params ID, which is here. And then we're going to find the user based on the session. And here we're saying that if the hospital user is equal to the user ID, we're going to show the hospital. And that here we have hospitals/ID/edit. We're going to again find the hospital by the params which is the ID. We're going to find the user by its ID and the session. And if there's a hospital user, if the hospital user ID is equal to the user ID, we're going to go ahead and take into the edit hospital page. And finally, we have the patch. And basically, what the patch does is that it modifies or changes an existing resource. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and find the hospital by its ID, and we're also going to find the user by its session, user ID. And if the hospital, the user ID is equal to the user ID, and the hospital name is not empty, and also the hospital country is not empty, we're going to go ahead and update the hospital, which is the hospital name and the hospital country. And then here, this is where we simply just delete the hospital based on its ID. So we have the hospital here, hospital.find by ID. And once it finds it, it's going to go ahead and destroy that hospital. And so all of these files, these are going to be my view files. This is the page where the user logs into their account. And the important thing that I wanted to mention is that a form needs to have an action and a method. And basically what the action does is that it's just an attribute that specifies where to send the form data when a form is submitted, so that it matches the route, which is the login route. And we also have the post, the method of post, which is that it's basically the data that's not shown in the URL. And we have the label for username, the password, and here we can go ahead and submit it and then log in. Here we have our create user file, which is basically the same thing as the login file, kind of. And here we have our hospitals. I have the href link here, so if they click on it, they can display the hospital, or they can add a new one. Here we have the show ERB file. Here we're iterating through each hospital, and I did it with each index, so that's in order basically. Here, all the hospitals are going to be displayed. And then this is our create hospital page. This is our edit hospital page, and the important thing is that we have a value of patch, which allows us to update our hospital and modify it. We have our show hospital here. And one thing to note is that in the show hospital ERB, this is where we also delete our hospital. And I also added these links, so the user can easily, just edit the hospital, add a hospital, or just show all the hospitals that the user has added. And yes, that's pretty much sums up my project. Thank you for watching.